Hi, this is Brendan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock Blog, and I'm here with Adam Balderstone for another episode of Bedrock and Balderstone. And we're talking about the latest episode of Doctor Who, Series 11, Rosa. This is the episode about Rosa Parks, and it's the third episode in the season. And so we're a little bit late this week with it. We usually want to get these out like Monday or Tuesday, but I was unable to get to the episode until the other day, so we had to delay it. So Adam, but before we get into any of the details of the episode, I just want, what was your initial reaction to this one?
I was pretty pleased with this episode. It's really tricky to pull off kind of educational message kind of episodes in any TV show. I think it's always a tricky game to play, and I think they just kind of nailed it with this episode. It was very satisfying. So I was happy with it.
Yeah, I would agree, because I feel like there's multiple things you have to balance in these kind of episodes, and it's sort of like the classic, like the first Doctor episode with the Aztecs. I can't remember the name of it, but that's like, to me, that's like a benchmark episode for that style of incorporating history and entertainment and sort of a little degree of education. And I think that you got to balance the entertainment and the education factor, but you also have to balance, like, there's like a thing that happens with these kind of episodes where they can get too heavy on the lesson giving and things can start to feel out of place and out of time because people are sort of educating you at awkward moments. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or they're serving as the mouthpiece for the writer or whatever it is. And this episode felt pretty balanced to me in that respect. I felt like it was very entertaining. In fact, in a way, it really reminded me of Back to the Future. That was the thing I kept thinking of when I was watching this episode. And again, those are two very different subject matters, but I think they both were 1955, right? So it was
Well, Back to the Future 1, the sequels got pretty gonzo, but the first one was a pretty grounded movie for the most part, I think, as far as the tone. But yeah, it's and another thing too is you've got to balance the issue of you don't want to make it into an episode where, oh, the doctor's the one who made this all work out. It's like, no, the doctor had to fix what other people had, this other time traveler had messed up, but it was still Rosa Parks doing her own thing. You don't get this weird thing where this historical event happened because of our fictional characters. It was They balanced that properly too.
And that's what I was going to say too. Is it, again, that kind of goes, because remember the first Doctor's whole thing was you can't change, like that was what he said in the Aztec episode. You can't change, not like a single line can be rewritten. And
yes.
And then she says in this episode, we know what and I don't know if she was just talking about this moment or if she was talking about this season or this incarnation of the Doctor, but she was saying our mission is to prevent history from being changed, basically. That was, and so to me that feels like it's really hearkening back to that was one of the things I really liked about the first Doctor episodes that I did see, was that there was this the way that history was used was sort of, it's not supposed to be changed. And obviously that's something that they drifted away from for a variety of reasons. But I kind of like that they went back to it in this episode.
Yeah, for people that don't know, when Doctor Who was originally pitched to the BBC, the original idea was it was going to be a time travel show where it would be educational. That's why the Doctor's granddaughter was part of the cast, and the two companions were both teachers, a science teacher and a history teacher, because it was like, there's going to be lots of opportunities for learning, and they had like a no aliens rule too. There's not going to be any aliens or bug-eyed monsters. And obviously the whole show went very differently over time, but yeah, this went closer back to the original model.
And yeah, so I thought that was good. I also thought that the peril of this episode was good. Again, it had the same kind of threat going on as you had in Back to the Future, where like there's just this sense of like even like, especially as it was building to the climax, where it's like they have to make sure all these pieces fall into place. Yeah, and I thought it worked really well. It was I thought it was a strong episode, and again, it's and just in terms of the handling of the history, I thought they balanced it well. Like, it's one of those things where when you have an event like this, there's so much popular history that gets kind of attached to it in the public mind, and the writers have to make these decisions of, well, how do you convey sort of the more involved history with the, without throwing people off by disrupting something that is the more popular image. And I thought they did it in a lot of good and subtle ways, sort of like, there seemed to be some kind of like NAACP meeting going on that, that Ryan was brought to. And I thought that they didn't dwell on it. They didn't like explain it, too much, but it kind of put the piece there so that, like, okay, they're aware of the other stuff that's going on in the background here. And so I thought that all worked.
Yeah. I mean, it's a much more complicated, event that's going on. I mean, Rosa Parks was an activist before she, took this one stand. She was very, very involved already when this incident occurred, and so it was good they highlighted that. And but yeah, it's very interesting. I really like the fact too that this did feel like they traveled to a historical era, because through a lot of New Who, there've been a number of historical episodes, but they tend to go very, very broad, particularly like, the Victorian era episodes where you're kind of in this weird, almost cartoon version of the historical period rather than an actual history itself. So it was really satisfying to have something a little more grounded.
Yeah, this was the opposite of that, because that's like the one where Rose is kind of taunting Queen Victoria, right? Is that the?
Well, there's a number of them. You've got like you have the one with Rose where there's the ghosts in Shakespeare and stuff, and the witches in Shakespeare, and then but you've also got like the first 12th Doctor episode, where you've got, you've got like all the aliens wandering around, you got dinosaurs wandering around London, and then the whole giant Cyberman robot attacking Victorian London. I mean, it's just, it was nice to, I'd say up till now, the most grounded historical episode was probably the Van Gogh episode. That was probably the one where they've been the most subtle in the past.
Yeah, this was more along the lines of the Van Gogh episode for sure. Both in the fact that it's it's taking like a venerated historical figure, and it's trying to entertain and move you, but without, there's a limitation placed on them by the fact that they're dealing with Rosa Parks or Van Gogh, and so but the limitation works in the favor of the episode, I think, because it forces them to take that Back to the Future approach of, well, we just have to preserve history. That's the overriding goal here. Yeah.
And of course, talking about whether you can change history or not, the Van Gogh episode was like, sometimes you just can't change it. You try, but sometimes you just can't help people.
No, so I liked the threat in the bad guy that they had of this guy who's a time agent, or not a time agent, but he's got one of the what do you call them, the time vortex manipulator.
That's it.
He's got the time agent device, and he was in that prison that River Song was in, I think. And, and he's sort of this extremist who wants to change the past to prevent the civil rights movement from taking hold, basically. But I thought that that's a threat that they don't use enough in Doctor Who. Not that specific threat, but just the idea of somebody actively trying to change time. Do you know what I mean?
It was interesting to bring that up. And I mean, it's also interesting, with that threat, because like you say, it brings in the prison that River Song was in, it brings in vortex manipulators, which, I mean, every time you get a new showrunner, it's like, what's going to be left behind? When Moffat came in, there were all these characters and things that you just never saw again. And so, having a character show up with a vortex manipulator, it's like, okay, so that's still going on. That's still something. But yeah, I like that. It was fun. I mean, well, the other thing that character presented too was, one of the messages of this movie was that, growing up in the 70s and 80s, I got a ton of TV that was pushing messages, down your throat. And I mean, a lot of them would kind of almost have the feeling though that it's like, yeah, we know racism is bad now, and these things happened in the past, and we fixed it.
Mhm.
And if it, this episode was very careful to make the point that you deal with these issues and you have to work with them. But there's, prejudice is something in some form or other is always going to exist. There's even this guy from the future who's going to come back because he's decided this is the point where everything went wrong. If I can change this event,
Well, and I was a little bit, that was
perfect.
So that was one part of the episode I was a little bit, I thought was a little bit odd, is I didn't know what time he was from. Maybe they mentioned it and I missed it, but I felt like it would have made more sense if he was like a more modern person who had somehow ended up in that prison than if he was way, 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 way in the future. And just because of the world building that's already been done. Do you know what I mean?
To an extent, I agree. It's like us getting upset about, because I think
the Nikkei riots. It's like us getting mad about the Nikkei riots and going back and trying to change time.
Yeah, I know. I mean, the idea is, what the ethnic and racial issues of the year 5000, which I seem to recall is where Jack Harkness was from, are going to be so inconceivable to us that I don't know that would matter. But I was willing to let that go. I thought they at least making the point that these problems, you can make things better, but you always kind of, it's an ongoing process that you never quite win.
No, and I one issue I did have with that, not the message itself, but with the way that it was delivered, I felt that would have been better handled if they did it during the downtime in the episode when they were back on the TARDIS or something, because the moment when that conversation happened, I felt was too perilous a moment for people to be having that kind of conversation. But again, it was like
exactly.
There was when they were hiding behind the bin when the police officer was.
Oh yeah. That's right, of course.
So I felt like it would have been more fitting to have it happen after the tension had been more over at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think on the whole though, they did a pretty good job with that.
No, and I think the I think they did a very good job, like you were saying, of playing history a little bit more straight. And again, it was just it was you. A lot of times when you're watching Doctor Who and you go into the past, it's kind of so whiz bang that it just doesn't feel like you've really gone anywhere. Do you know what I mean? And here I felt like, okay, no, we're definitely going back to 1955. Like that's sort of the feel they're trying to create.
Yeah. Once again, with it being a trying to preserve history thing, I mean, if you in their crazy version of Victorian England they had during the Moffat and RTD era, it's like having an episode where you're trying to preserve time. You'd already be like, this doesn't even seem like our history anyway. I wouldn't be able to buy into the stakes, so it needed to be grounded for that to really work.
No, and I mean, and I'm and again, I like the craziness of some of the Moffat stuff. It's just
me too.
It's just that it's nice to.
I'm saying it wouldn't combine well with trying to preserve history though, because you need a feeling that history is real before you can put history in peril, basically. Yeah.
No, I would agree with you. If the silence were somehow involved here or something, it would definitely have changed things. But I think that was the other thing I liked. I liked that I guess there may be some kind of vast conspiracy behind this, but the bulk of it was all put on a single figure. And I think his name was Krasko. And I think the last episode we didn't have a villain, but we had a guy who was kind of sort of he's kind of a little bit of an antagonist, or at least a jerk, named Epso. And so I'm wondering if O's are going to become like an easy way to denote who's going to be filling a certain role.
I don't know. We've got a Graham O'Brien in there and the companions. Is he really going to turn out to be be the bad guy?
I certainly hope not, because Graham's been like a very likable character.
I would be upset
if we find out he's like a secret serial killer or something. I think that would really would really, I don't know. It would affect the dynamics of the group for sure.
Yeah, no, I genuinely do hope that is not the
and
case.
and it would force us to bring Nan's judgment into question as well.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, but yeah, and I have to say, Vinette Robinson, who played Rosa Parks in it, I mean, she was a big part in making the episode work. She just nailed the part from the scene where she shows up and kind of intervenes when they get into that first altercation with the guy after arriving. She was just a really strong presence in the episode.
No, I would agree with that. I would agree, and I think she got because she's English, right? The actress who played her.
I don't know her background. I would guess based on her previous work, Sherlock, Black Mirror, and Doctor Who. Yeah, she's from Bradford, Yorkshire. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, because I mean, the accent seemed pretty good. I mean, again, I'm from Boston, so I'm not the best judge of Alabama accents, but it seemed to me enough. It seemed plausible. So I think that means it's fine. I'm sure somebody from Alabama would probably quibble. But,
yeah, I'm not gonna rule on the accent. Just the performance itself that I thought was very good.
But again, I think the accent is part of it though, because when you're doing a historical figure, you're doing their accent too. Do you know what I mean? Like there is that, But yeah, I don't know. What about the whole thing? Like, do you think that there were any flaws in any of the concepts or any of the premises of this episode?
Flaws. Let's see. There weren't any crucial flaws. I don't know. I mean, is there anything you're thinking of just to get the conversation going on flaws?
I mean, I think the episode was pretty strong. Like, I don't think there was anything that rose to the level. I think kind of like the first episode. Like there was nothing in that really, stuck in my, like that got me bothered. Same thing here. The one thing that nagged me a little bit as I was thinking, well, like, okay, say this guy does stop her that day. She could just do it the next day or the day after or do it again. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's not necessarily like, I think that like, I like, again, I guess you can bring in a whole discussion of like how significant are these little moments in history.
And, would it have mattered if it was the next day?
And because the villain's whole argument is he realized in prison, and I'm probably going to butcher the exact phrasing, but he said something to the effect of, history is, hinges on small crucial, events, right? I think that's what he said. Or crucial moments, or important moments, small moments, and like I guess that's true, but also like if you have a situation like this, it would be very easy for it to happen on another day on another bus. It wouldn't necessarily.
Well, here to give you some historical context, you may or may not know, but like in March of that year, Claudette Colvin had been a woman who was a 15-year-old student who did the same thing. She refused to get up, and at first the NAACP was thinking, oh, here's the case, because they were waiting for a chance to challenge the incident, to basically challenge the law. But then it turned out Claudette Colvin was pregnant, and they were worried, oh, well, she might be too easy to vilify, so they decided to drop her. And then when Rosa Parks did it, Rosa Parks was someone they were like, well, she's just a really well-respected figure. She's the one. So they're, lurking in the background. I mean, you kind of get the idea from the meeting, but there are people waiting for someone to do this so they can do the case. So yeah, I mean, you have a point. If she did it the next day, she still would have had the NAACP backing her. It still would have gone to court. So I guess it probably wouldn't have changed much, if anything. But
no, that said, that's just like me going on like a historical sort of nitpick about it. I think it's totally fine what they did. because
Yeah.
I get the point they're making, that these little things accumulate and make big differences, and there are these pivot points in history, and so that's that's sort of what they're trying to get at here. But I, it was still nagging me while I was watching. I was like, well, she could just do it tomorrow or the next day, or keep doing it until it becomes so but yeah. So go ahead.
I'll say, but yeah, of course that leads into the the interesting thing about this episode, that usually the Doctor and the companions are trying to do something good, and here they're well, they are ultimately trying to do good, but they're trying to engineer creating a situation where she gets forced to forced into the situation where she gets arrested. So it casts an interesting light on their actions, because they're ultimately trying to do something good, but
yeah, no, that was interesting. Though again, I think it was, I don't know, that I thought was a little bit cheap, because like the characters understand the full weight of the situation, and so it would still
be rough having to sit there on the bus and just not say anything, though.
I don't think so. See, I would disagree. I really would strongly disagree. I think if you're a time traveler and you go back in time and you know who Rosa Parks is.
Yeah, but they've gotten to know Rosa. Well, a little bit at least gotten to know Rosa Parks, and she doesn't know they're time travelers, and they just have to sit there and go, "We're not going to say anything. We're just going to ignore you."
But she even earlier in the episode, she had said to them, like, go. She didn't want them to.
That's
you know
true.
What I'm saying? So
she didn't want them.
They didn't want. She didn't want them imperiling her or other black people. So I feel like that part of the episode, like, I think anybody in that situation who knows who she is and knows the significance of the event wouldn't really need to be, apologized to by the Doctor. Do you know what I mean? It just, again, it's a minor quibble, but I feel like I feel like in those types of situations, we're talking about time travel, it doesn't exist, but I mean, in a situation, if it were to exist, I think we could handle the guilt, knowing what the outcome is going to be, but anyways, yeah, I don't know, but what I did like about that is I liked the excitement and the danger of, is this bus going to fill up with enough people in time? Do you know what I mean?
I know. It's like, it's so funny, because I mean, ultimately the Rosa Parks incident is big stakes, but all the things they have to deal with to get it to happen, these small stakes things, like, oh, we've got to take down these signs from the bus station saying that it's closed, and we've got to come up with an alternate bus, and it was really it did pull me in. It worked for me.
And again, I have to keep going back to the Future, because it just had that, like, in that one it's the DeLorean getting to the I forget the wire in time for the lightning strike at the bell tower, the clock tower. But it's a very similar type of I don't know. It's a similar way to sort of pace the ending and keep the audience on the edge of their seats. And I definitely found that I was on the edge of my seat at the episode. So that's, I think, from an entertainment perspective, it was I think it was just a good, solid, entertaining episode. In terms of sort of just being an interesting exploration of history, I thought it was good. And I thought that it, a bit like we were saying before, I think I had a good balance without getting, you have to get a certain amount of heavy-handedness in an episode like this, but it didn't go so far that it was like, that it was pulling you out or disrupting the mood of the episode.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, this definitely was a very special episode, but it was a well done, very special episode.
Well, you know what it is? It's like like Star Trek used to do those sometimes.
Sure,
you know what I mean? And it reminded me of those style of very special episodes. Like, there is a degree of heavy-handedness to them, but they're still good, enjoyable episodes. And there's there's nothing wrong with a little bit of sentimentality around things. It can and so I think that I think that it's sort of more in that ballpark, and not, say, like the Punky Brewster zone, which is, I think, more what you were thinking of earlier.
It's like there was no. I didn't feel like this whole I didn't feel like I was getting a lesson with this episode. The episode was just enjoyable on its own terms, and it had lessons in it.
Yeah.
So it was very well executed.
And yeah, so I don't know, what about the just the way that this episode was sort of shot and edited, because it did feel to me a little bit different than some of the other episodes, and I wasn't sure why.
Boy, yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, everything was just very grounded in this as far as the look and everything. It didn't go out of its way to. I didn't feel like there was anything flashy going on with the look of this episode, which was good. It just kept things realistic to an extent, as realistic as the show can be.
But you know what? Something about it, like remember how we commented on the Broadchurch effect in the other episodes? I didn't notice as much of that at this episode. I don't know. Maybe it was there and I missed it. But there's like a certain way Broadchurch is shot that we were kind of, noticing with the recent episodes, which I think we both were fine with.
Oh yeah, I like it. Broadchurch is a beautiful looking show. So I mean, that's one reason I was excited when he was taking over. I thought, wow, he's gonna make makes a show that can be very visually appealing. So I think he can bring some good stuff to it.
But I just didn't notice that quite as much, and I feel like I only saw the episode once, so it was kind of hard for me to really evaluate the way that the episode was shot. But
sure.
it just looked a little different to me. Like I don't like almost like it was shot more like a drama. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It was shot like a drama. Interestingly, it's the same director as the previous episode, the Ghost Monument.
But these episodes are so different from each other. It would be very difficult it's difficult to compare them.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I would say actually though, I expected to like the Ghost Monument more leading up to it, and I think I enjoyed Rosa more than I enjoyed the Ghost Monument, because Ghost Monument was fine, but I never really got super caught up in the plot with that one.
Yeah, I think we both I gave it a B. You gave it like a B, C plus or a B minus or something. We were like kind of
in that range.
Yeah, and most people I've spoken to, I think, had a similar reaction to that episode. That's the people that I know that watch Doctor Who, not people online. So maybe the reviews are different, but in my social circle, what I've been hearing is a very similar reaction. And I've been hearing, similar things from people from the first episode too. But I specifically blocked out as much as I could about this one, because I knew that there would be a bunch of reviews the next day, that there would be think pieces and all kinds of stuff, and I didn't want any of that to cloud my my experience of the episode. And I was glad I did, because I still don't quite have any idea what the overall reaction to this episode was. And so and I'm finding more and more I like to do that when I watch these kind of shows. I don't like to I don't know, there's a weird thing that happens, like sometimes, like we've even seen it on our own shows when we do Wish Weekends. Sometimes a room of people can convince somebody that they like something that they didn't like. Do you know if there's enough?
It's true. Yeah. Well, the other things too, it's not always convinced. Sometimes they'll just point things out. I mean, like with the Wushu Weekend, where there's four of us talking, it's like someone will point out all these little details, and I'm like, that went over my head. I'm like, whoa, that was really clever. And so sometimes I'll genuinely like something more because of the conversation. But yeah, I don't want my opinion when I'm going to be reviewing something to be a reaction to someone else's opinion. I want it to be just my raw opinion from watching the episode. It's like I don't want it. It makes it a lot more complicated when you've heard other people's opinions ahead of time.
And I guess we didn't really talk about the other characters this episode. We've spoken about them in all the previous reviews that we've done. Was there anything about Ryan, Graham, or Yaz that's was particularly significant this episode, or anything you liked or didn't like in how they were handled?
I thought they were all handled pretty well this episode, and I thought Ryan going off and meeting with the council there and everything was interesting. Gave him a little moment there. and and yeah, and it put Yaz in an interesting place with where she was a minority, but not the same kind of minority. It kind of called that to attention, and
Though I have to be
yeah,
honest,
I
I
don't.
think she might have just been treated as a black person in that situation. I think that might have been a more
She
plausible outcome.
probably that
Yeah,
probably would have been. I'm
because
talking within the
well,
context of the episode.
I
Historically, I kind of thought the same thing.
I had an aunt who was Sicilian who was not allowed to into a Woolworths or not, like one of the like and so I
Yeah,
just feel like it was and I got my grandfather's old boxer's license, and the way that they dealt with the color lines was I don't think it was so gray. Um,
yeah.
uh, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong. It's not my area. But
They gave
what was that?
Graham stuff to work for. They gave Graham stuff to work with because it's as a bus driver, we had an entire bus-based episode, which is something he's probably never going to get again. So he was in his
And the
wheelhouse.
one guy you got to talk to about his bus driving is the Rosa Parks driver. You know?
The most despicable bus driver in history. I know. but but yeah, that's that was I just like the touch where they're all separating to do things. It's like, and I'll go to the bar where all the bus drivers hang out
Yeah.
and find information.
I thought the companions all worked really well this episode. I'm enjoying them. I'm really enjoying all of them.
Yeah.
When they had three, I sort of was wondering: is there going to be like one I really don't like? Is there going to be like a dynamic that exists between two of them that I don't like? And I think that they've got a really good group together with that. It's not like any of them stand out. Like they're not like Rose or Amy or Donna style companions. They're not people that
Yeah.
like stand out on their own as this figure that you kind of have to pay attention to. They're more like ensemble players. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
more like
Yeah, they are.
and so
They are.
like they step in when they need to step in, and I think that really works for the show. Because even when we've had multiple companions in recent years, I feel like it's been less of that ensemble approach and more like people really kind of trying to get like the characters are all kind of each trying to break through individually in their own way.
Well, there's always been one major companion. I
Yeah,
mean, like, like when Amy Pond was the companion, she was the companion.
yeah,
There might
that's
be
true.
other people riding along in the TARDIS, but she was the companion. And yeah, this it does feel like they are all the companions.
Yeah.
They're collectively the companions, which we haven't gotten with the new series. But yeah, another observation too I'm going to throw out about the episode is that you know every episode up till now when Graham has referred to Ryan as his grandson, Ryan has immediately jumped in and been like, no, no, he's not. And
Mm.
it's like here where Graham saying it is him taking a leap to an extent,
Yeah.
saying, "No, this is my grandson," in a place where that is not a cool thing to the
Yeah.
people he's talking to, and it's like Ryan did not challenge him on it in this episode. I unless I'm mistaken, I don't think he
No, I
ever
don't think he
ever
did.
contradicted him.
I don't believe he
And
did.
so
I
that
think
was
you're
that
right.
was that was an interesting development in the series. I think he just let it stand.
And yeah, no, I thought I'm liking them. I'm liking them. What about the Doctor? How you feel? Because now we've had 3 episodes of this Doctor. What do you feel like you get a better sense of the character that is emerging here, or is still the same impression from last time?
Uh, I mean, I think probably the most interesting Doctor scene was the scene with her, Graham, and the police officer in the hotel room was the one, and just her it's just her still getting used to the way people read her as being female was kind of interesting. Her
Yeah.
not being used to it, and having to pretend to be Graham's wife, for it and stuff. And I liked the way she played it. She played it completely as just someone who is an alien who's just kind of inhabiting this body and just is just not sure what to think about it exactly.
And yeah, I think the scene that kind of stuck out for me was the one where she sort of surreptitiously tried to use the sonic screwdriver to get a reading on the guy, and she made like a really eccentric expression, and she kind of looked like a crazy person for 2 seconds, and I thought that was a nice flourish as a character. But yeah, I don't quite have a handle on the I don't have like the words I will use for the personality yet. But I'm definitely starting to see how she's different from the other doctors. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, you know how like, I don't know, it always takes like it takes some episodes before you really start to see them as the doctor. Do you know what I mean? And without the other doctors occupying your headspace. Do you know what I mean?
Honestly, I'm feeling like I do see her as the doctor. The question is, if you were to say what is unique about this doctor, I don't have that nailed down yet. But but
that's what I'm saying.
What
I'm saying is when there's a changeover from one doctor to the next, I find I carry over the previous doctor's personality traits in my head. Do you know what I'm saying? And
I see. I thought, I misunderstood your comment, but no, like I said, I don't have I don't feel like I have a complete handle on this doctor in a way I could describe. I think like I kind of get this doctor, but it's probably going to be a couple more before I can really get into pinning it down. And of course, in the show might still, for all we know, they still don't have a handle on the character themselves. And by the end, I mean, with the last Doctor, we kind of had a major change between the first season and the second season.
I feel like even with like Capaldi, who I loved, like it wasn't until like 4 or 5 episodes in that there was a click. Do you know what I mean? There was like a click, and it was like, now I see he is the doctor. You know what I mean? Like, I knew he was the doctor before that. I didn't reject him as the doctor. But it's like there was a clicking that happened in my head, and I feel like I'm starting to get to that clicking point with her. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm talking about. It doesn't always just have to do with the actor. Sometimes it has to do with, the hair is in the right position now, or something about, like, this doctor has been defined. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's sort of the moment that I'm looking for. And I find in the first, section of a doctor's incarnation, there's this less defined period that, and I feel like she's still in that zone. Like she could still go any number of directions as a doctor. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't feel like she's been thoroughly defined, even though I feel like she is doing a good job with it. But
I feel like it's on the tip of my tongue now. Do you know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to say. Like I feel like it's like I'm getting a much better handle on this doctor now.
On this doctor, yeah. Well, maybe the next episode will be the clincher that will.
And the next episode is what? Something about arachnids, right?
Arachnids in the UK. A nice, good pun title episode.
So here's the thing. This is two things that I don't particularly like. I don't like when they have like the blank in the blank. Like so often it's fine if it's like, like some of the classic episodes had titles like this, but like I'm thinking like Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. I don't like those kinds of titles for episodes. I think we talked about this before, where the premise is just fully laid out in the title. Do you know what I mean? It's not the sort of noun preposition noun structure that bothers me. It's that when that structure is used to just lay the premise bare in almost like a baby talk type way that I don't like.
You mentioned this to me earlier, and I think what I said, you don't like it when the elevator pitches the title.
Yeah, that's it. And Arachnids in the UK feels like an elevator pitch in the title, which I don't like. I also don't particularly care for the reference to the Sex Pistols for some reason. I don't know why, but that just bothers. It's not that I have an issue with Sex Pistols.
It might be totally relevant. We might get a big John Lydon cameo in here.
I hope we don't. But I something about that, it just kind of sets the wrong mood for me. But I have a friend who's terrified of spiders, and he sent me a message that, he's not going to be able to watch this coming episode because it's got spiders in it. And so I'm I have the duty now of watching it and reporting to him. And as I was thinking about it, I was like, well, anytime they've done arachnids in Doctor Who, I've been happy. Like there was the Runaway Bride episode.
Yeah, giant spider there. I'm trying to
just,
think of arachnid episodes off the top of my head aside from that.
well, even beyond Doctor Who, I think spiders are just a really good science fiction thing to work with. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot that you can do with spiders. So even though the episode it's the kind of title I really don't like, and that would normally kind of give me pause. I feel like the fact that it's going to be dealing with something spider related bodes well. So that's my feeling on the upcoming episode. I mean, it could be totally upturned if it ends up being a terrible episode, or super remarkable in some way that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see. I have no idea. I didn't actually pay much attention to the upcoming the scenes that were given the first look at the next episode. I kind of tuned out while that was on, so I have no expectation regarding the next episode.
It is a Chris Chibnall episode, right?
It is Chris. Yep, it's the Chris Chibnall episode, and it's directed by Sally Abrahamian, who I have not heard of. I don't believe she's done an episode before.
Yeah, she's doing another one on episode 8. It looks like.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I think after this episode, my guess is they're going to try to go into something that's much more sort of standard, just sort of like just standard Doctor Who type episode. Just to kind of get things back into sort of a less heavy zone, maybe. But
yeah, it'll be interesting if it's a modern day episode, if they are going back then, because then they'll have to reset the premise of, are the companions going to continue to travel with her, and if so, why? After right now they're on the lost TARDIS cycle of the reason that they're
that's a good point.
Still together.
So here's go ahead.
No, go on.
So my impulse is to say that what's going to happen is this will be the episode that they decide to remain as her companions, or that the companions who will be the companions for the rest of the season decide, and the one or two who decide to leave will leave. I don't know if are all 3 companions supposed to be staying for the whole season? Do we know, or is that?
I believe so. I haven't heard anything to the contrary. I haven't looked too hard. I try and avoid casting spoilers if I can. It's always a risky thing, but I believe they're going to be around all season.
Yeah, so I think that just my gut tells me that's probably going to be the episode then that they'll make the decision to stay, or maybe it'll be like you were sort of suggesting, that it's not the present day or something, and
yeah, like the title that could be, like I said, it could be a Sex Pistols crossed over, and they'll be like in the 70s London,
or they could go to the future, and the London is completely overrun by arachnid overlords or something.
That's true. They could go with that Lovecraftian future where there's the spider creatures that replace mankind in the future. Yeah.
So, but I don't know. We'll have to wait till Sunday to find out. Though realistically, I'll probably not see it till Monday. But I'm not quite on the same clock as everybody at the moment. But yeah, so I don't know. So far, I mean, we only got 3 episodes, but how are you feeling about the season this deep into it?
I'm enjoying the season. I can't say I love the season yet. There hasn't been an episode that's just amazed me or anything, but it's been fine. I'd say the first and third episodes have been the better ones. The second one was merely okay. But yeah, I'm happy to keep watching. I have no real problem with the show yet.
Yeah, no, I'm sort of in the same boat. I think these have all been good episodes. I would say the first and the third are the stronger ones. The second one was good, but a little bit weaker. And I don't think that I don't know. It's still very early to sort of gauge the whole season, because we could get like 3 really bad episodes or 3 really great episodes. And
the last season we reviewed, that we had that trilogy in the middle of the season that started okay and then just became just a drag on the season. So
yeah, I still think that season was a very good season overall, though.
It was. I know. That's why it's such a shame. Aside from that dead spot in the center, It's
You know what it
was a
was?
good season.
I had been bitching so long about how I really like the multiple episode storylines, and we finally got like one, and the initial episode was so great, and then it was just like I don't think either of us could stand the follow up episodes or the
Well, it was weird because each episode was written by a different person too, and had a totally different tone, and didn't
yeah.
really fit well with the others. It was a really strange approach to doing a three-parter.
Yeah, because
So
the thing I like about a 3 or 4 parter is that it's one complete piece. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? And
yeah,
that definitely gets at what didn't work about that. I do hope we get some multi-part episodes this season. I have a feeling we won't,
sure,
but
it's
maybe I'm
possible.
wrong. But I do want to say there was a lot of talk about how much they were going to change the show and all this stuff. And aside from that, like broad church sleekness that they've added to some of the visuals of the outdoor scenes and stuff, and some of the way that some of the way it's shot, and I guess maybe I don't know. There's some obviously a new doctor, but it's not really been as much of a shakeup as I was thinking it might be, which I think is a good thing. I
It
was a
is
little
a
bit
good
worried that
thing.
they were going to radically overhaul the show, and I feel like they've stayed true to the basic sort of features of the series.
Yeah,
And so because they the way they were talking before, I mean, I get granted we might have like a big thing that kind of ties this all together, but I was almost thinking we were going to get like one long storyline over the whole season. Do you know what I mean?
that would
And
have been a mistake, I
yeah,
think. I've probably gone on about this before, but I think it's been a mistake in a lot of the new series with having these ongoing plots, because when you have a show where every episode is in a new time and space, it gives you an ability to tell completely new stories every week. And anytime you have a story that takes place all over time and space, you get those crazy
yeah.
timey-wimey plots that they don't know how to resolve that happen just about every year in Doctor Who. And it's like, it gets taxing. So
Well,
I'm happy to see separate plots.
well, and I do suspect we're going to get a Torchwood style threading in this one because I think what we're getting
Mhm.
is like. And again, I guess the Russell T Davies episodes kind of did this too, where you get like
Yeah.
the idea planted, and then something comes to fruition later in the season. So I suspect we're going to see, like what was it, the Stenza? Was that the Stasi?
We've
The
had the Stenza, yeah.
Sorry,
The
not
Stenza we've
Stasi,
had in 2 episodes. Yeah, Stasi are a different thing entirely.
but probably not entirely unrelated.
Yeah, maybe
Uh,
not.
but yeah, my apologies. But
My apologies to the East German police.
yeah.
So
No,
sorry.
no, no. But I feel like that is probably going to come back in some way, and it wouldn't surprise me if whatever this guy is connected to comes back. That storm cage thing, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see more people trying to change time over the course of the
Yeah,
season.
yeah. I mean, well, one thing that interested me when she did the weird thing when she went up and down with her sonic screwdriver, I was wondering if she deactivated the time travel on it, like the Doctor did with Jack Harkness, because it just I just wondered. I'm like, does he still have a functioning vortex manipulator? Because it just struck me as that was what she was doing. She was just killing his vortex manipulator.
I mean, she could have been. I don't know.
Yeah, they never brought it up, but
And she ended up smashing it anyways. So
that's
you know,
that's true.
but
She did smash it later. Yes.
and I did like the neural implant thing. I thought that added a cool dimension to the bad guy because that
Yeah.
placing that limit on him, it really, number one, it helped explain so much about why he wasn't taking more extreme action. But number two, it forced all of these really cool interactions between him and the Doctor. And
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. Those were some of the more engaging moments in the episode, actually, is when she was just sort of having a conversation with this guy, and he's like this maniac, but he's held in check by the fact that he has this implant that prevents him from stepping over violent lines.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it also explained his weapon too. His one that shoots you into the future, which seems like if you're just trying to kill people, it's like it seems like a really energy inefficient
Yeah.
weapon when you could just carry a pistol. But it's like, oh, okay, it's because he doesn't want to kill people. That's why. Okay. Well, he does not that he doesn't want to, that he can't kill
He
people.
can't do it. He
He
can't
found
do
a
it.
loophole.
But yeah, so I don't know. I think I don't know. Is there anything else about this episode that we didn't raise that we should talk about?
I think I've pretty much said all I have to say.
All right, so yeah, so again, this was Rosa. It's the third episode of the season, and I think we're it's promising so far. I think things are looking pretty good. You never know. Doctor Who can sort of it can go in a very unexpected directions, so you never quite know where things are going to lead. But I feel this feels like a fairly stable season so far. I feel like some of the things some of the whiplash that happened in the Moffat era, which I honestly didn't mind, but I know a lot of people really didn't like. I don't feel like that's going to be as present, kind of like you were saying with the timey-wimey stuff. Like I feel like even if that's there, it's not going to be as like we're not going to get 18 twists and turns at the end of a single episode that'll just like rack your brain. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It is because I mean. The cast. I mean, we've already talked about the cast being very good and them being a nice ensemble. I mean, I think that's part of it. It's like even though there hasn't been any plots that have completely blown me away or anything yet, but I just like watching these characters interact. I'm happy, just kind of even if the whole season is only okay as far as the plots go. I'm on board watching it just because the cast has my attention.
Well, I think also, like, I mean, I don't watch that many current TV shows, but I watch them when other people I know and who are in my family watch them. And so my impression is that back when Matt Smith was the Doctor and Capaldi to a lesser extent, that the general, like a lot of shows kind of operated that way in general. Like not necessarily timey-wimey, but there was like a lot of stylistic editing going on with things kind of moving at an odd pace and sort of rapid shifts through time. And I feel like now I have to emphasize here, I don't watch that many current shows, so I could be entirely misinformed. But now when I watch people watching shows, it seems like things are much more steady. Do you know what I mean? The pacing is a lot more even. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I guess what I'm getting at is maybe that's why.
I don't watch a wide range of television either, so I can't weigh in either way.
Yeah, I'm being very speculative. You know what it is we some households were affected differently by the internet, and my household was affected. We just watch stuff on the internet now, and so when I watch things, it tends to be much later than when it came out. Unless it's something like Doctor Who, so I don't have my finger quite on the pulse of what the current trends are as much as I used to. So I feel like an old man sort of trying to gauge the climate of TV in the past 5 years.
I don't know. Then again, maybe only old people are watching actual TV now. So maybe you're hip and young because you're only watching things on the internet.
That's possibly true. But either way, this season feels less like it. Like the Moffat season kind of felt almost like an episode of Scrubs the way things were edited and shot. Do you know what I mean? Like there was do you know what I'm talking about? And this feels more like I don't know, Hill Street Blues or something. Like it's just like more even. It's
steady.
But I lack the vocabulary to express what I'm trying to express here. But I think you get my meaning.
I get your meaning.
so anyways, we'll head out. I think we've tapped the subject to its completion here, and but I do want to say we're going to be back on sometime soon for the last episode of I, Claudius. And actually, it's kind of good that we waited because I have a lot more thoughts now. I realized a few things about Antonia and other things that I just sort of popped out in my head as I was thinking between episodes, and we're going to be on tomorrow with the Oily Maniac. Some classic Ho Meng Hua. We're rounding out our Black Magic Halloween theme for the month, and then we'll get into our new theme the following month. And so we'll be back on soon, and until then, we will talk to you later.